Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of the Melbourne AWS User Group podcast. My name is Arjen and I'm joined by everyone's friends Jean-Manuel Becker and Guy Morton.
Hey everyone. We always do that. We talk. You should announce us individually. So you go, Jean-Michel, hello. Anyway.
Now, it comes as no surprise that we're discussing the news from November, but unlike usually, we won't cover everything this time, as we're recording a bit early because of reInvent. That means some of the November announcements we'll cover during our reInvent podcast, which will probably come in the first or second week of the 3-week extravaganza, when most of the announcements will have come.
We can maybe mention that the session of reInvent agenda has been published. So you can log into the reInvent website and see all the different sessions who interest you and book some time in your calendars. It's a tedious task, but I think it's worth it. And there is time in Australia times and time middle of the night as well. So
yeah, just as a general tip that I found being at reInvent itself, always make sure you keep slots open, because a lot of sessions won't be announced until the service is announced.
Yes, so after Andy Jassy talk, usually there is some new session which is popping up. So do a new search to find the session on the new product and the new announcement to do some deep dive with the team.
With that, let's have a look at what we finally have in Sydney. We already mentioned this in the last podcast, but Amazon Kendra is now available in Sydney, which is nice. Again, we've discussed this in the past, so not that much new to say about it.
Well, it's like a corporate enterprise search engine, right?
Yes. And what's new this month is the Confluence, so Atlassian Confluence connector for Kendra. And I know that many people are always complaining about they can't find anything on Confluence. So maybe that tool will be able to, extract blogs and information and pages from Confluence and put them into a nice searchable format. So looking forward to test it.
Yeah, and to clarify, because last month we said almost the same thing. Last month's Confluence connector was for Confluence Server, which is the self-hosted version. And this month is for the cloud-hosted version of Confluence, because obviously that needs two different things.
Yeah, well, it probably does. If I remember Atlassian at all, it's probably two completely different pieces of software. So yeah, they're a bit annoying like that.
And they run on different versions.
Yep.
Okay. IP multicast on Transit Gateway is now also available in Sydney.
Yeah, it's not a service really very has been used very much at the moment, but that can be used for news article, for stock quotes and group subscribers to be able to broadcast across multiple VPCs. And AWS is the only cloud where you can do multicast. So that's quite interesting to be able to migrate multicast application into that environment. So you need a transit gateway for that, and then you need to create that connectivity between your VPCs, and you can start multicasting information. Interesting for some application, but not everyone use that.
And the other Australia Sydney related news is that we have a new community hero, or data hero in this case, which is Denise Bauer. I have never met her, but reading the blurb about her on the site sounds like she knows a lot of things about things that I don't know anything about.
Well, she's part of the CSRO, so that's pretty respectable company or organization. And looking forward to see talks and keynotes she can do. Very interesting.
And it's always good to see more women in tech, right?
Yes, and more people from Australia becoming AWS heroes.
Yep.
All good things. Let's have a look at serverless items. The one that I probably find most interesting is Eventbridge now allowing for event replay. This basically means that you can now redo an event. So if it failed for some reason or just, in testing, I guess, you can have it run the same thing and make sure it all goes through correctly this time.
Yeah. And again, I think we've probably commented at the last several What's News around things that AWS has done for Eventbridge to make it more sort of as a serious sort of application piece of your application stack. And this capability is a key part of that, to be able to replay events that have failed. You can't have a system that's sort of a key part of your production application stack that you can only run events through once, and if it didn't work, then you can't do anything about it. So there's been a few announcements around Eventbridge that have been to that end.
Yeah, there was a dead letter queue last month, I think, and then now the event replay. So there is an archive processing fee for 13 cents per gigabyte, and then a storage per month of 0.025 cents per month in Sydney. So like S3 cost, basically. So yeah, a bit of cost for the storage, but fair enough. Don't want to keep too much anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. You can now have CodeGuru Profiler for your Lambda functions. So if you're, I wouldn't call them bloated.
Call them bloated. Go on.
Yeah. If you're actually running your Lambda functions with Java, you can now use a layer to have it baked into your runtime. It's basically dependent on Corretto, and then you can have your profile information. The result of that might say rewrite to a different language, but that could also just be me.
Other Lambda announcements around, so it makes it easier to send logs to custom destinations and event source. Oh, so ActiveMQ. So that got some love last month, I think, too. In fact, it was a candidate for a Nano. They updated Apache MQ to ActiveMQ to like a 1.1 version bump. So I don't know what. Maybe this is connected. Maybe they needed that to enable it to be an event source for Lambda. But Apache Amazon MQ is now an event source for Lambda.
That's very good. Yeah,
but only for the Apache ActiveMQ. We'll come to it later, but there's now
a RabbitMQ version, yes.
That's true. That's right. Yes, quite right. Thank you for clarifying that. Don't want to get too excited.
There is two big step function support integration now. One with API Getaway service integration. So you can now have API Getaway, the REST version or the HTTP version as your step function integration. And the other one is with EKS integration as well. So very interesting there to be able to orchestrate jobs running on Kubernetes. So your step function linked with Lambda, SNS, SQS, all working together with step function, orchestrating the show. Very, very cool.
It's another one of those services that's received a lot of consistent development this year, and been extended into a bunch of different. I think every month there's been an announcement about some integration with step functions that's been worthy of note.
And always that you can always remove the error handling into your code and then putting that into a logic into the step function instead of having to build all that yourself into your code. So that's very good.
Yep.
Pretty cool. But that's it already for serverless. It's not that many things.
Now, maybe some good stuff coming up later this month. Talking about big stuff, I think Lightsail containers, it's a big stuff this month. So you can now run containers with Lightsail. Arjen, do you like it?
I haven't actually tried it. I know that you said you have. Look, this is one of those things that we've mentioned in the past where AWS is making it easier to do things, which is great. I am not a big fan of the Lightsail product itself, and especially when you compare this probably to the solutions that were announced a couple months ago, I think, where you can use Docker Compose to automatically deploy to an ECS task and Fargate and have it all working like that. This is a different way to do that with even more of a service layer on top.
Yeah, I mean, as we were talking about before, the Lightsail has its own console. It has its own sort of whole user experience that they've wrapped up. And the nice thing about that, as JM sort of pointed out when we were chatting before we started recording, the nice thing is that in this case, it gives you, your load balancer, and it gives you a way of getting your SSL certificate, blah, 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 and your DNS. And it kind of wraps it all up into a product that's kind of easy for perhaps someone who's not sort of super interested in all the details to just kind of get the job done. So that's kind of where they're pitching it. But the frustration that I share with you, Arjen, on this one is there's not really, they don't seem to make it possible for you to migrate from Lightsail into other sort of native AWS services. So you can't sort of take your containers from a Lightsail environment and just, click a button and say, oh, now they're running an ECS and now I can access all the other, capabilities of a sort of more featureful product. So it's an interesting product and it's good if that's what you need, but it's also got its limitations, which are something you probably should be aware of before you take a step into that.
So just to highlight the product, so you can run containers without having a VPC, without building any networking devices, any DNS or anything like that, straight into AWS, just with a Docker file and a couple of code lines for your Docker. You can use Docker Hub or your own desktop to be able to upload that file. You can't use ECR, unfortunately. And then, for $7 a month, you can run a Nano, which is a 512 memory and 0.25 CPU. And that includes a public domain name from AWS, but you can use a custom domain name and you can upload your own SSL certificate to it. So you could run something very, very quickly. And that includes 500 gig of data as well, egress. Over that, AWS will charge you for people to abuse stuff, 9 cents per gig, which is the egress cost generally in AWS world. It probably responds to a demand for people who just want to test a container, put a website on it, but there is so many other ways of doing it. And you're right, when you are inside AWS and you prefer to use VPCs and the standard stuff, it's probably easier for the long run than trying to run this into that separated environment.
Yeah. Also, just to clarify with the pricing, for that $7 a month, you get a single container running.
Yes.
So if you want to, it costs $14, things like that. Compared to the Lightsail costs for just a single instance, which starts at $350, and you get more CPU and more data transfer as well.
Yeah, because they mentioned the load balancer. I thought that that will provide you some type of high availability across multi-AZ, where the Lightsail version, if your EC2 dies, then it dies. So I think that AWS will provide a bit more kind of high availability for that container than the single instance, and having that SSL cert and domain maybe worth the difference in price. Yeah, to be tested.
I think we've spoken about Lightsail way too much now.
But moving on, ECS supports IPv6 in AWS VPC networking mode. This is interesting. It's not a major deal because, again, I think this kind of feature comes really interesting once you no longer have to have both IPv4 and IPv6. If you can run purely IPv6, then it means you no longer have to worry about anything related to your subnet sizing. Now it's only useful if your containers connect to an IPv6 only network, which would usually be your on-prem network.
Yeah.
But a couple of things that you probably find interesting, Guy, with your love for CDK.
Oh, yes. Tell me.
ECS extensions are now GA, and the EKS construct library is now available as developer preview and support for CDK8S, or however you're supposed to pronounce that one.
CDK8s? Yeah, I don't know. I always say CDK8s in my head. I don't know whether that's right or not. Yep. Always good to see more things in CDK. So were you just going to say what they are, James?
No. I was saying that because it's now developer preview, AWS guarantee that there will be no breaking change going forward to the GA version. So you can start really using it and enjoying it.
Except as a developer preview, so you may not enjoy it. I mean, we're talking the CDK here. It's not the world's most bug-free product.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It does occasionally bite you. So, yeah. But if you're into EKS and CDKs, absolutely get amongst it. The more people who throw themselves at it and become sacrificial lambs to the slaughter of the bugs, the faster the bugs get fixed, right? That's how it works.
Yeah. There is a couple of upgrades in AWS App Mesh controller for Kubernetes version 1.20. Nothing special in there. And there is the VPC CNI plugin version 1.7 as well for EKS clusters. That includes support for pod security groups, what we talked about last month. And they automatically detect new IP address changes as well for the existing VPC without having to restart the plugin. So a couple of enhancement there for people who love EKS.
Well, let's then move on to a couple of big ones that I think we're very interested in the EC2 and VPC section. We've got a network firewall.
So yeah, been 5 years? We asked AWS to have a firewall maybe in AWS to be able to use some type of egress filtering and ingress filtering instead of just having security groups. So very well, I guess, designed product, to be honest, and very interesting product to be able to deploy that through many different type of format, from north-south, east-west, across transit gateways, across VPCs. I mean, it's really well thought out product. Cost-wise, I think it's $260 a month per endpoint. You need an endpoint per AZ. So very quickly you are in the $1,100, $1,200 of a firewall. But when you're in enterprise and you look at what enterprise are doing today with current, next generation firewalls and very heavy product, which cost them like $50,000 a month to have two. Then suddenly that offering look very interesting.
Absolutely, and I think the other part of that too, which people tend to forget. So there was a conversation today I had at work around this, and sort of it seems a bit expensive, but then when you sort of think about it, as you say, JM, I mean the appliances that you can run in AWS marketplace stuff. I mean that can get expensive fast.
Just on EC2, I mean, most of the time they require M5, extra large, and just on EC2 cost, yes.
Yeah, and you're then responsible for a measure of that anyway, right? And then if you roll your own solution, then you're responsible for everything and the EC2 cost, and you've got a bottleneck because this is dynamically going to scale to meet demand, right?
Yeah,
it's not a fixed, there's no bottleneck here. It's designed like the NAT gateway and all the other gateways and such that you get. It's designed to scale up as you need it. You're not managing infrastructure. You're not updating infrastructure. It's all the sort of usual managed service kind of advantages come with this too, right? So it isn't just a sort of a feature comparison. It's also a work comparison, like it's a TCO discussion you'd have to have around this.
Yeah, definitely. And then when you see companies spending months to try to automate connectivity back to transit getaway with VPN, IPsec on top, and all sorts of things to make it highly available, AWS do give you that out of the box. So you can use rule engines, and there's two types of rules. One for stateless engine, so you just drop the packet if it's not matching, but then some other stateful kind of rule where it will look at your URL, it will do some matching. You can use as well specific rules that you can design yourself or import some from providers and run that. Yes, there is a cost. And when you start in AWS and you want the minimum cost to start with your VPCs and your NAT gateways, but I think it's a fantastic product.
Yeah. At this stage, there's only one real downside on it, which is that it's not in Sydney yet.
Yep. Yes. That's right. It's only in 3 regions at the moment, but I'm sure Transit Getaway being here, all the components to work with that product are already in Sydney, so it shouldn't be too long for that to come to us. And I've got customers who are looking at removing their, appliances firewall running on EC2 with very expensive licenses to be replaced with that. Maybe not for everything. I mean, if you still need a PCI environment with east-west traffic filtering, maybe you still need your Ecs brand for compliance. But for most of the stuff, especially for egress traffic, I mean, that's pretty good. So the way it works, so you need a dedicated subnet where you're going to install that endpoint. So it's an endpoint. You don't see the device or anything like that. It's just an endpoint, and then you're going to change your route to point to that from that subnet inside to point to that ENI of that endpoint, and then the route will go inside the firewall and can come back out. So you can have all sort of magic filtering from Transit Getaway. So you can have a hub VPC talking to Transit Getaway, going to the firewall, going back, going to another VPC that east-west, or going to another subnet where you have an internet getaway and then a NAT getaway, and then you get out to the internet, and all that routing happening through that endpoint. And again, it's scalable. So yeah, very good product, I think.
And I think I've observed in the past, who'd be a service provider relying on AWS to not fill a gap that that your product fills.
That was the only one left.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That said, I find the other announcements in that same space very interesting, which is the AWS Gateway Load Balancer, which seems designed to run these appliances that the network firewall replaces.
Yes, so and it's the same technology the AWS product use. So it's funny, it's exactly the same. You have an endpoint happening in your VPC where you put yourself then EC2 instances with your Palo Alto and Checkpoint and Cisco or whatever device you want. And basically it's exactly the same product that AWS sell, but instead of having AWS managing the firewall instances for you with the network firewall, then with the global, the Getaway Load Balancer, yes, that appear in your VPC, it's an ENI, you change your route from your subnet to that ENI, and then you put behind your Palo Alto running on EC2. So you won't save anything doing this in licensing, but you gain high availability, because in the past we had to do this, very complex IPsec tunnel with BGP and ISN names and all that, connecting VPC together with the Transit Getaway. And now AWS does it for you with that global load balancer, and then you put your EC2 instance behind so you can scale them as well. But, if you had to use something, why not to use the RDS type of a firewall instead of doing your own, right? That's the same principle.
Yeah, but as you said, I mean, there's probably use cases for complex east-west filtering that I think you mentioned that you might need some other product for. There'll be gaps potentially.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this new firewall is still, the new product like AWS do. It's not an MVP, but I think it's good. You have JSON file for doing URL filtering and stuff like that. You can import Suricata compatible IPS rules, and you can do the normal 5 tuples, protocol, source, destination, blah, 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 firewall rule. There is one thing though, I think it's limiting the number of WCU. So you need to be careful of how many rules you might need to apply, and how that can be ingested with the number of rules you can apply for that particular firewall before creating another one. So that's one thing. But you get logging, you get out of the box integration with Splunk, Sumo Logic, and all of that for monitoring all your SIEM. I think it's really a good product, and honestly, I've been building landing zone for 5-6 years now in AWS. I've been begging for this, because that's always a conversation we come with the customer. A NAT getaway is not a firewall. Knuckles is not good enough. So they wanted something, and now we have it. So that's really good.
Yeah, and I think as you said, that's the other advantage of this, is that it's able to, it's kind of aware of all the control tower and account type stuff that is in a complex kind of multi-account structure these days. So it's kind of giving you an AWS oriented solution that's kind of optimized for that.
And talking about that, same same announcement or following announcement, there is Firewall Manager who has been announced this month, who now can integrate with this firewall.
Yep.
So you can have across account, across org, the same rule getting pushed to all your firewalls. You have one centralized logging. You can monitor your security group. You can monitor your network with that. Now, good integration. And I need to mention there is a fantastic blog about the deployment. I mean, it's not a blog, it's like a Bible. It will take you probably 3 or 4 hours to read, and there's fantastic number of diagrams in there explaining all the different possibilities how to deploy the AWS network firewall. So have a look at it.
Cool.
So other announcement in this section, the EC2 autoscaling now supports multiple launch templates. The main use case for this, as probably described in the blog post, is basically if you have completely different types of instances, so and Intel in the same autoscaling group, now you can give them different AMIs. Or if you have bigger instance types that you need to run extra things on or less things, or it's probably a bit of a niche announcement, but it's still pretty cool.
Another IPv6 improvement, network load balancer now support IPv6 as well with dual stack. So that will integrate well with your ECS if you need to. And so you support a dual stack with a DNS name and be able to forward traffic now to IPv6. All the pause and resume workload on T3 and T3A. Always nice to see, you can, not many people are using it, they prefer terminate it or stop it completely, but you can hibernate as well, EC2, T3, and T3A, and you can do it on Amazon Linux, Linux 2, Ubuntu 16 and 18, and Windows Server 2012, R2, and 16 and 19 as well. So, yeah.
Let's have a look at DevOps then. CloudFormation chain sets now support nested stacks. On the one hand, this is great news. On the other hand, I still don't like nested stack.
Nested stack. But that was painful, right? You couldn't do a chain set and you couldn't see what the impact it would be because he had nested stacks. So now you can see really the impact of if the resource is going to be created or destroyed or just updated when you have your chain set applied.
So now you'll be forewarned, or you'll be made aware of the fact that you've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah, wait for clicking apply, right? You need to wait for the chain set and everything to be able to check the chain set before you apply it.
Yeah, it is such a big improvement.
Yeah,
like I said, I don't like nested stacks. But when I've had to use them, and then you made a change set, and it showed you this stack has changes. Awesome. That is just what I wanted to know.
Yeah. Your RDS is going to be terminated, but we will tell you when we've done it.
Speaking of stack sets, you can now also use them with Service Catalog. So, okay. But X-Ray with S3.
Yeah, this is I was interested in. I don't think I'd ever really been aware of the fact that you didn't get any kind of trace when using S3. And now I guess this announcement means you do get that, which is good.
Yeah, it's also a bit, I wonder how they're doing it under the hood.
Yeah.
But I guess it's all API driven, so probably an API integration. But yeah, pretty cool.
There is an announcement with System Manager Op Center. That can integrate now with CloudWatch to diagnose remediation alarms. Yeah, from this release, you can specify from System Manager Op Center action from the CloudWatch alarm and automatically create an issue and alarm triggers inside Op Centers. So that's good integration and give you that global across account view if you have a couple of alarms on a couple of accounts. So this product seems to be growing from AWS features, so probably people want to have a look at it.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned it before, but it definitely seems to be trying to turn that into really an Op Center thing from which you can see and control at a high level, at least, all your accounts.
Yeah. So if you are all in AWS, the only cloud you use, then that can be a very good alternative product. I know my customers want to usually use multiple environment, or they have on-prem stuff, so they have already their own product. But if you are all in AWS, I think Ops Center can become very attractive now.
Security?
Yeah.
We talked about in security, AWS Firewall Manager now supports centralized management for AWS network firewalls. So we talk about that.
It's the big one. There are free services now that allow you to use KMS, DynamoDB, Global Tables, KMS, and Textract. Always good. Not much to say about that.
I think you meant SageMaker Studio, did you? You said you can use KMS and KMS.
Yes. I'll just re-record that.
So it's DynamoDB, Global Tables, SageMaker Studio, and Textract can all use KMS.
So in Global Tables, just a reminder that KMS need a key per region, right? So key are not shared across region. You need a key per region. So when you want to replicate your table, you need to nominate your CMK in each region, and then the replication will happen with different encryption in each region. And the advantage of having CMK, obviously, you have much more control on your encryption keys. You can monitor with CloudTrail, you can rotate your keys as well once a year automatically with AWS.
Neat.
We've come to data storage and processing. This accounted for what I feel like about half of this month's announcements. There's really a lot here, so if we are skipping over your favorite announcements, apologies, but there's no way that we can cover all of this and do that in less than 4 hours.
So, do you want to just start at the top and work your way down? I mean, I think the first one's probably of interest to people using Dynamo. You can export your table data to S3.
Yep.
That I think probably will be useful for people who have got a lot of data in Dynamo and they want to be able to push it into S3 and then do things like run SageMaker, Athena, do sort of data lakey type stuff with it. Doesn't require you to write any code. It's just a sort of clicky through the console to set something up. Presumably there's some other ways of doing it as well. And you can export it into a JSON format or an Amazon Ion format. Did you know what Amazon Ion format is, guys?
It's an extended JSON version, something?
Basically, yeah. It's got some support for some extra types.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting. It costs around 10 cents per gigabyte process in the US East region. And he wrapped basically your DynamoDB table into a JSON blob with an item at the front and then all your records. But which is interesting. I was reading the blog as well before. Like you have a NoSQL that you export to JSON to S3, and then you're going to use Athena to run SQL queries to be able to interrogate JSON. How good is that? So for people who cannot use NoSQL, then maybe that's a good way of using SQL commands to be able to query DynamoDB tables.
Yeah, it could also be that for some people it might fit better into existing workflows.
Yeah, I mean for data lakes, when you have a lot of data in DynamoDB, that you need to import that into other environment and do joins and other type instead of building your own ETL or doing a Dynamo data stream first, and that is out of the box by AWS and you end up in S3. So minimum cost and obviously the cost of S3 for storing the data. You need to enable PITR though on DynamoDB if you don't have, because you need to do that diff to understand the change, and that's a little cost, but usually you want to back up your DynamoDB table, so you have that enabled already.
Yep. And after you've put all your DynamoDB data in S3, you can now use the S3 storage lens to have visibility into it.
Yes.
This is pretty cool as well. If you've worked with S3 in the past, you know how difficult it could be to have any idea of how much you have in there. I think that has improved a bit over the years, but the S3 storage lens gives you a wonderful insight into how much you're storing, whether it's encrypted, whether it's versioned, a lot of information that you can see all from a surprisingly nice bit of console.
Yeah, you don't have to go to CloudWatch. You stay in S3, you just click on it. You click your report, which is a free metric. So you have an advanced one and a free version. But today, if you go and see your AWS account, you have one. You have a report already. You can check. And then suddenly you're going to see, I've got S3 bucket across all these regions. They have been growing for the last 3 months with all that data. What is it? And that happened to me today. I went to delete 500 meg of data that I didn't need. It was just all log stuff that I was there, keep accumulating. So very useful to get this holistic view of all your S3. And for organization as well, even better, you need to enable at the organization level the feature, but then suddenly you can see across your org all your S3 buckets.
Yeah, I mean, to me that's the killer. The killer aspect of this is the fact that it'll give you a cross account view of your S3.
Yeah, and the growth and who consume what and so very, very, very cool. I think really changing the way people are going to use S3 as well. And reducing costs for us. I mean, and you can look at which type of standard or archive you use as well, and so how you can maybe be more efficient at moving in the different storage class to save cost as well, because nothing has been moved from that bucket.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think that one of the challenges with S3 is it really has the interface for S3 doesn't really tell you anything at all.
Yeah,
it's one of the least information-rich views on your infrastructure that you could possibly imagine, because at the top level it doesn't even give you any indication of how much stuff's in a bucket, right? But
it's magic, right? It's unlimited, right? You just stick it in there, it's fine.
Yeah, but that's right, and that's that bill shock thing when you find you've got petabytes of data of log files that have. So I think this is a really good and it's a step change for S3. To have that kind of visibility. And
transparency as well. And across org, I think I'm very impressed with that. Yeah.
No, awesome. A update to Amazon MQ. It, as we mentioned earlier, it now not only has ActiveMQ, but also RabbitMQ, if that is your preferred queuing.
You can use version 3.86 of RabbitMQ. That's the only version available in Sydney, and I think elsewhere. It can be a public access or private access to access the console, and AWS give you that DNS name for you to log in, and you have the same interface that you always use with RabbitMQ with your messages and the memory and everything from your instance. And you can pick, obviously, when you set it up as well, if you want a cluster or if you want just a single node. So it's pretty cool.
It's an interesting one to me because, RabbitMQ, it seems like the more popular product. So I wonder why it's kind of evolved this way, that they've got RabbitMQ, they're adding it now, but it's been ActiveMQ up till now. Is that like a licensing thing, do you think?
Oh, yeah. I had exactly the same question when the product came out, like a couple of years ago. It's like, why did they pick this one? I never heard about it. I always heard about RabbitMQ. So, yeah, interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they both support AMQP. So I think I can sort of understand why ActiveMQ was deemed an okay MVP for this kind of service, because AMQP is the protocol that they both, that RabbitMQ uses as well. So it's kind of RabbitMQ kind of compatible, but I think, the fact that so many people know RabbitMQ quite well and probably know how to tune it for what they're trying to do. And, obviously client libraries and so forth probably makes a difference as well. It's interesting. So I'm guessing that ActiveMQ was just an easier first release or first product to use from a licensing point of view. But yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of licensing things, one that I found very interesting is Documentdb with Mongodb Compatibility. Now adds support for Mongodb 4. So when Documentdb first came out, it only supported 3.2 around there, which happened to be the very last version where MongoDB had a license that made it free to use basically by cloud providers. So I really wonder what happened here now. Did AWS start paying MongoDB, or did they find a loophole around the APIs? Because it was basically the API structure that they put the license type on. I can't recall the exact details. I was interested in it at the time, but I think it's now a year ago.
Does that mean that MongoDB is going to move to 5, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, it's 4.0. I don't know where MongoDB is now. It could be that they're 4.2, 3, 4. So it's still behind, most likely. But there's still a big difference. Yeah.
So the latest stable release is 4.4.1 of... Yeah, so it's a 4 series. So it's interesting. It is interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, I guess, we're most of us, I think, are kind of fans of open source and have come through the ranks of, I guess, developer and fanboy. And, we're kind of, well, speaking personally, keen on the whole concept. And you do have slightly mixed feelings sometimes when you see Amazon, take products like this and kind of obviously make a whole bunch of cash off it. And you do see, I mean, there's been Elasticsearch is another one where they have a similar kind of lag from and then obviously Elastic are trying to separate their own product and say, come and use Elastic Cloud, it's better than AWS's product, etc., all those sorts of things. Yeah, so it'd be nice to think that they're playing nicely together and everyone's getting paid for their effort. But who knows? Maybe we'll have to get someone drunk during a reInvent and find the true story.
Athena has engine version 2, so another version bump there. It doesn't seem like a super major change to me. It adds a bunch of new features. The big one might be federated queries and some performance enhancement in some things like joins and ordering and aggregate operations. Additional
geospatial functions they're always nice if you're into geospatial.
But you will need to upgrade to the version 2 from the console.
Yeah.
To be able to use the new features. Yeah.
Anyway, actually, it's more of a security thing than data storage. But managed AD now has multi-region replication. You played around with this, James, I think you said.
I didn't play around, but I had a look and more in detail, and I tried to create one to understand what will be the cost and stuff like that. So, I mean, people who use Active Directory, they know how hard it is, or used to use Active Directory, to create domain controllers and to do replication and all of that. So now, AWS for the Microsoft Active Directory Enterprise Edition of the directory service can replicate that for you across regions. So if you have a large domain that you run Windows instances in Sydney, for example, and in US East, now you can have Microsoft Active Directory across these 2 regions replicated for you automatically from the backbone from AWS, not using your network, and having your the same AD on both regions and across multiple accounts as well. Cost-wise, it's not bad. I mean, the product itself is 48 cents. It's 24 cents basically per node, and you need 2 of them for each region. And then, so that's around $360 a month to have a 2-node Active Directory. And then if you add another region, basically that's another $360 because AWS is going to create them for you. So very easy to use. You need to create your AD first. When you have it, you said add a region, you pick the region, you pick the VPC in that region, you pick the subnet you want your domain controller, and then AWS is going to create everything for you in the back end. For you, after that, it's just pointing to that DC to join the domain, and all the replication is done for you. So I like it because it's a really managed service. So for people who run Active Directory across multiple regions with the same domain, that will be a very good saver. Because in the past, they couldn't use Active Directory managed services. They had to create their own on EC2 because you couldn't do that multi-region replication. So again, the design is like, even if you have on-prem, you can have your own forest. You do a two-way trust with an Active Directory in AWS and trusting your groups. And that way you can have in AWS world the managed services. Again, like you said, maybe before, Guy, it seems to be expensive. But when you look at it, you have two EC2 instances running your account, fully managed, fully patched, highly available. You don't have to worry about anything. And they're managed by AWS for $500 Australian dollars a month. So it's pretty good.
Sounds like a bargain to me.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the wonderful world of running Windows on your Snowball edge?
You do. I can tell.
Well, again. The Snowball Edge has a purpose, right? People are running that in submarines, in mining, and not all applications are running on Linux. So I know some mining company who have some Windows application that they couldn't run. So I think that's a good addition. You can run 2012 R2, I think, and 16 and 19. But you need to bring your own license. So you will need to import an IMI or VMDK or whatever you've got on-prem into AWS with bring your own license, because that's your Windows. You can't use the SPLY licensing from AWS because you run that on the local hardware. And obviously have your proper license with Microsoft to be able to do it. And then import that image when you create your Snowball Edge into your device, and then you will be able to launch that AMI when you receive your Snowball Edge there.
So one thing actually that could be useful for people and is good to know is that AWS Backup now supports the FSX file systems. Obviously, when AWS Backup was announced, it was the first and only way to backup EFS. And since then, it has started including a lot more options. And FSX, which you couldn't backup before, at least not in an automated fashion by AWS, now also falls under the AWS Backup umbrella.
Yeah, in the past you had to do PowerShell script and all sort of kind of manual stuff to be able to do some backup in there. And that's Windows File Server and FSX for Lustre as well. Both of them are now included. So you just need to have a tag to include them in your AWS backup, or you include the ARN name into your backup, and it will backup as scheduled.
Yep. And because I can't leave it off, you can now also use FSX for Windows with your ECS Windows containers.
So if you need permanent storage for your ECS Windows containers and share that storage between multiple containers, then when you define your task, ECS task for Windows, it will mount automatically that SMB share from FSX, and you can have that permanent storage in your container. Interesting. Good addition. But yeah, who want to use it? A bit complex, I think.
Yeah, instead of setting this up, I would suggest maybe looking at porting to .NET Core and running your application on Linux.
Absolutely.
There was an improvement for AWS Storage Getaway. I know that maybe a lot of people are using it, but when you do tape on-prem or volume Getaway, now you can throttle the bandwidth in your setup, so you can make sure, for example, that you're not going to allow more than 1 or 500 meg a second during the day, but then give the full bandwidth of that storage Getaway to replicate by that to S3 in your network, so that give you a better performance for the product, and then more replication in off-peak periods. So a good addition there, because before people had to do it at the router level, so now you can do it straight from the storage Getaway.
Yeah, that is definitely good. Just imagine you live in a country that doesn't have a great internet service thing, and they call it like NBN.
Yeah, you talk about Australia here. One little announcement which I hadn't noticed until now is the 40% price reduction for EBS cold HDD SC1 volumes. That's not a bad price reduction. I mean, that's already one of the cheapest EBS volume types, obviously for price per terabyte, but 40% cheaper now. So if you've got a lot of data that you need to, that a cold HDD storage device would be optimal for, then happy days for you. It's 40% cheaper now.
So, $160 cheaper a month for a 16 terabyte volume.
Yep. So that's neat.
AI, ML.
New instances. Usually we mention these in the EC2 VPC section, but these are specific for machine learning. GPU-equipped P4 instances, as probably doesn't come as a surprise. Gs follow the P3 instances and are a lot faster, can be used for what it seems to call ultra clusters with 4,000 or more GPUs, which sounds awesome, if I can say so.
Maybe it's the way they run Alexa or something. I mean, who needs that much stuff except NASA or Amazon itself?
Well, maybe you can do your machine learning in a fraction of the time using this. The specs sound cool that you have it's 600 gigabit per second bidirectional NVIDIA NV switched bandwidth, according to Graph. Lots of things. I honestly don't know what to say about this other than that it sounds cool.
But it seems like Hello World might be might be overkill.
Yeah. I think they only come in one size, I think.
Yeah, P4D24X large, and you can launch them in US East and US West Oregon.
And they come with 1.1 terabyte of memory.
And 400 gig networking, ENA. So, very cool. I don't think any other cloud has anything like that on this size, for sure. Yeah, the Poly launched a new Australian English normal text-to-speech voice. It's Olivia. So we had Russell and Nicole, which are very Australian name. But Olivia, is it Australian?
Yeah, Olivia Newton-John.
Oh, of course, I missed her. Yeah, of course.
Goodness gracious me. You'd fail your citizen test with that one, with that answer.
So you can use Poly with that voice, and it's got a unique vocal personality with voice sound expressive, natural, and easy to follow. Probably not like mine, but...
You know what I think? I think at this point, I will have her say...
A fair shake of the sauce bottle.
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Did you listen to the British newscaster style? I'd listened to a little snippet of it, and it's kind of creepy. Well, you know that concept of the Uncanny Valley?
In aesthetics, the Uncanny Valley is a hypothesized relationship between the degree of an object's resemblance to a human being and the emotional response to such an object.
You've heard of that? Yep, right. So that's that bit in perception that like when something looks human, like it gets to a point where so you've got cartoon representations of humans going down sort of all the way, or going all the way towards like very realistic 3D renditions of humans. And people like cartoony humans, they can relate to them. And you get to a point though where the human representation is so close to looking like a real human.
It's becoming creepy, is it?
That it becomes creepy and people don't like it. And that's this Uncanny Valley where people's sort of, feelings towards these things gets negative. And I think that's exactly what my feeling is with some of these, speaking voices that Polly's getting now. They're so good. Like previously when they were kind of all stilted and, hello, we are a automated voice. You could go, oh, poor thing. It's a bit stupid, but I kind of get what it's saying, so I don't mind it, right? But as they get better and better and better and they're almost human, I think the Uncanny Valley's kicking in. And for me anyway, I listen to these and I go, I'm feeling very uncomfortable with that voice.
Well, that's just plain rude.
A computer is talking to me.
Well, yeah, because it's not real. but it sounds very real. And
you could be tricked by it. That's your
absolutely.
Your fear.
And well, it's not my fear. I'm not personally afraid of being tricked by it, but I just think there's something in your psyche that says that thing's a human, but there's something about it that I can't quite put my finger on that isn't right. And, I think that's, so they're going to they'll probably spend, another, it's like the 10%, the next 10% of making these voices very natural will take them probably 10 years.
Yeah.
To get that last little bit, right? Until we actually can't distinguish and we're comfortable that, whatever we're talking to is, it's a computer, but we don't care anymore because it just sounds so real that we're happy with it.
Speaking of sounding so real and being happy with it, I saw a set of 3 announcements that are just tailored to you.
Because bad things come in 3s. So these wouldn't be the Deep Composer announcements, would they?
They might just be. I remember last month you were talking about how there wasn't something like the community races for Deep Composer.
That's right. Yeah, it was.
But I see here that they announced yet another Chartbuster challenge, and it is nicely named Keep Calm and Model On.
Yes. Are you competing in that? Because you've got the keyboard, haven't you? And you've got the skills.
One of those is true.
Yep. Chartbusters. Yep. That's gonna be. It's gonna be all over MTV, I reckon. Is MTV even a thing, or am I just? I'm just showing my age. I think MTV stopped being a thing in the 90s. Guy, shut up. You're embarrassing yourself.
We just call it YouTube these days.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, keep calm and carry on.
Another interesting one for JM, I think, is Amazon Lex now adds language support for French, Spanish, Italian, and Canadian French. I'm missing Australian French in there to completely understand you.
Yes, I'm not sure if that's a very important language to support. But yeah, that's right.
Is Australian French where you can say fair shake of the sauce bottle, fair shake of the sauce bottle?
I want to try that. But okay. I was looking at reInvent videos, and there were going to be some multi-language version as well at reInvent for the first time. There is some French recording, there is some Japanese version as well, some Korean version. So inside the list of reInvent, some French sessions, which is
that's awesome.
First time.
Let's just hope they're not using Lex and Polly to interpret and then revoice the presentations of people. Yeah, because that would not end well, I think.
And the other cool stuff, 2 new regions again. AWS is releasing one in Hyderabad in India. That's going to be the second region in India with 3 availability zones, and that's mid-2022. So not yet. And then another one in Europe, in Zurich, Switzerland, with, again, half of 2022, 3 availability zone there available. So a lot of region in Europe now.
Yeah.
And, being French in the past, Switzerland was always the place you're going to put your money to kind of hide the money from the tax office.
Not that you would do that.
No, I was not. I was an accountant in the past, so I knew a bit the tricks. But what's going to happen now? Maybe people are going to put some of their storage and data into Switzerland to make it safe. Because I remember everyone, Switzerland is outside the EU, so different laws, different language. So interesting. To have some 3AZ appearing there in Switzerland. And AWS, where is our second region in Australia? We're missing it. We need one. There is none in Europe now. Come on. We need another one in Australia.
Yeah. We have just as much land as all of Europe.
Yes, that's right.
I'm not talking about people, just land.
That's right. So they'll have 2 regions outside the EU in that area now, because they'll have London and There's a region in London, isn't there?
Yes.
And Switzerland, so two outside the EU.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Interesting. One thing, just to zip back a little bit, we didn't say, but I thought it's kind of cool, is Amazon TextStrack supports handwriting and 5 new languages. That's kind of cool in the AI and ML section. Might be worth just mentioning that.
Yes, I think I want to see the quality. I'm very interested. I've got a customer who do exams online and stuff like that for kids who write and scan into images. Really interested to see the quality on that and how that's going to work.
I'm gonna write in my worst handwriting fair shake of the sauce bottle and feed it in and see what happens.
And try to make it say right, Polly. Yeah.
But anyway, that's a cool feature. And obviously, the devil's in the details and how well it does it. But to be able to have that coming through in that service is a definite step forward.
Yeah. Yeah, because usually there is a mix of paper and type characters and written characters, so that will be able to do both. So yeah. Another announcement, and I did some testing is CloudWatch launched Metric Explorer. It's kind of a small announcement, but for people that have been using CloudWatch and try to find the metric they want into that list, who go over of plenty of stuff, including all stuff, instances will disappear. I think that's really good. Now you can search by tag, you can search by all sorts of things to be able to capture the metrics you need and build a dashboard. So very good addition there for CloudWatch, having that Metric Explorer. So it's a different section into the CloudWatch space, another one. And then you click on it and then you can start searching between all your metrics in your account. So that's pretty fast to build a dashboard now, or looking at a couple of metrics, or grouping them by, like say, RDS with the same tag. You can do that search, and then you capture all the CPU for all your RDS with the same tag. So good addition for CloudWatch.
Yep, cool.
The one I had was the AWS backup, and AWS organization bring cross-account backup features available to customers. Again, a new features from AWS organization where you can cross a copy backup across account. That was features a customer requested. They want to have this this kind of bunker type of account where they're going to put all their backups with different keys, different access, or different even encryption keys. A bit like you take your tape from your tape when we used to do it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and then you give them to a nice man in a van who's going to put them in a bunker somewhere off-site in case of your building just burned down. So it's a bit the same idea. Yes, you do your backup, you do your snapshot in your account, but what about if something happened to that account? Can I move this backup to another account with different keys and different access patterns? So now you can do it across your organization with AWS backup integration with organization and copy your backups to another account. So that's, I think, very good features. In the past, people had to do scripts or run Lambda functions. So now it's all automated. Just a little limitation at the moment. You cannot do a cross account for Amazon DynamoDB tables. You could use another system to do that, and you cannot move Amazon FSx file system as well across account. We just found this month that AWS Backup support AWS FSx, so I think that's probably a feature will be coming soon.
Yep, definitely a cool feature.
Yeah, so you can restore from another account. You can, there is really a nice set of features who help you, to protect against disaster, ransomware, and all sorts of things that can happen into a backup.
So did we have some nano candidates?
Oh, I didn't look at that today.
No, I didn't really look at it. I think one that's kind of cheating is the there was yet another announcement around WorkDocs and the iOS app. It was here, let me see. You can manage the color theme in app on iOS. So not only does it now have light or dark themes, but you can manage it inside the app. Your stunned silence speaks volumes. It is amazing. So I'll read it for you so that you can fully enjoy it. Amazon WorkDocs now supports the ability to change the color theme, light or dark, directly in the WorkDocs iOS app.
It's, yeah.
Are you sitting down?
I can only be more impressed if the next announcement about WorkDocs is if you press the Enter key, the cursor goes to the next line.
Oh, we're so mean. I actually used WorkDocs just to see what it was like. And there's actually some nice features in it. So, I'll leave that there in case anyone from the WorkDocs team is listening to this and goes, they're being mean about my color theme switcher in the app. And I'll just say, look, it's not all bad. It's probably quite good, in fact, in some ways. So there.
I don't have, I can't see one.
Well, there's always IQ launches new functionality to support firms, which means you can now also have project managers.
Wow, that's your nano?
It almost say so. Yeah, I think I'll leave that as the nano.
Yeah. There
were some other possibilities, but yeah, nothing really stood out as easy to make fun of this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's Honeycode, of course. Single sign-on for Honeycode, but that feels like punching down to me.
This one might be nice. Amazon Connect has just reduced its 44th telephony rate this year.
Yeah, except if you're using it, you might really appreciate that. I don't know. It depends on by how much. Like, they don't say. Like, is it by 1 cent or,
to be honest,
1%?
I am glad that they didn't do a separate announcement for each of those 44.
Yes.
That's unusual. Maybe the nanos are biting. Maybe they're feeling the heat of our roasting of their small announcements.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Once again, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, Enabler, our gold sponsor, and AC3, CMD Solutions, and Do It International as our silver sponsors. I want to thank you as our listeners. JM, thank you for coming.
Always a pleasure, Arjen and Guy. Always fun, and thank you again for listening to us.
Yep. And Guy, thank you as well.
Yes, thanks, Arjen. It's as JM said, it is always a pleasure, and it's a fantastic opportunity to jam into like an hour and a half. Like, so much information, and it's always a pleasure to have that brain expanding experience. Thank you.
And just a reminder, our next episode will come fairly soon. That said, the last one was released 2 days before we recorded this one, so you'll have several in a short time. But as everybody else, we are looking forward to reInvent and talk about it afterwards. So, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.